joy. It's joy that surprises us, I feel like, on our progress through life. And the way that we respond to it reveal an understanding that we have, like maybe of the same sort, the understanding that we have of tragedy and comedy, but we seem to have an understanding that we are separated or divorced from something that ought to have been. And when we find these glimmers of joy, we're finding, I guess, small little revelations of truth, of where things ought to be, what we were created for, essentially. So when it comes to change, I think the biggest change that we have to contend with is that though we were made for communion with God, I'm hopping pretty quickly onto the Christian version of this truth, but even though we were made for full communion with God, even though we were created to live in a world that wasn't fallen, all our lives we're contending with change. And very often it seems like the kind of change that sunders us further from the place where we want to be, the things that we get glimmers of, that we're shot through by from time to time. So I don't know if that's quite where you were going with your question, but that's me trying to figure out the relationship of the homeward ache, of a homeward yearning and change and time.
No, I love that. And that's a wonderful answer. I think this being pierced by something beautiful and the kind of peace and joy that comes from it. When I read that in your book, it immediately made me think of C.S. Lewis's comment in his essay Transposition that says we can only hope for what we can desire.
Mm.
And so ultimately, I think wrapped up in this conversation about change, wrapped up in this conversation of how we view the world as inherently as a comedy or tragedy, happy or sad, in the way that, death is before us all, right? That's one thing we can all count on. It's hard, I think, to ultimately think of it, even from, I'll say it this way. I personally am the kind of individual who it's hard for me to see the end as happy when the end, at least from the way that my eyes can see without faith giving me wings to go higher, is to see death. And so what to do with this desire, this longing for something more, and how am I supposed to engage that desire so that I can have hope? It seems like it seems counterintuitive to me that I would have to feel the desire in order to have the hope, to have the wings, when it seems like the desire only makes the death seem more obvious and more hard, or more like a loss. And so, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Do you have that quandary as well? I mean, I know there's theological answers to it, but my lived experience, that's often how it feels.
This might be a sideways answer, but sometimes I think the dread and the hopelessness of that anticipation of death, decay, of evil is not so much that you're going to die. It's that on the way to death, you're seeing other people die.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So, and it, like in this story, when the Einar are seeing, they can see Melkor coming in and disrupting and putting evil in, or trying to at least. And then we can see, like, in the season of fall, like, you're not dying, but you can see the leaves are dying. And I think it's more that like we can only take it seemingly when we see, and we don't see what's behind it. What we can see with our simple senses, direct senses, is decay and loss of things. Our garden outside is closing down. The flowers are disappearing. As we see that, that will be the kind of thing that makes you feel like, oh, this is sad and this is depressing and it's all downhill, right? If I didn't know what was coming next year, if I didn't know that there were bulbs in the ground and seeds in the ground that will reflower and the grass will grow back, it just looks like all destruction.